Yo, what is up, guys? Your boy IzuKage here with the finale of What If Deku was Iron Man. This What If is so overdue, so I finally got around to doing it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Also, if you guys want to get to know me as a creator, not just the What Ifer, I have my Discord link in the description, so you can come talk to me on there. And hope you guys going to enjoy the video, and let's begin. So at the end of the last part, Izuku helps out the heroes with the Hosu incident and captured Stain. So back at school, they do the rescue training race, and everyone, they get into the area for the rescue training race, and everyone noticed that Izuku has gotten a bit more mature. Just him running his business full time changed him. Just his facial expression alone, it would make someone scared but put their trust in him. So the race starts with Izuku, Ojiro, Sero, Asui, and Ida. They go to the starting line, and Izuku, and as the race starts, everyone bolts off, and Izuku, without even hearing All Might's cry for help, used his radar to locate him and fly straight towards him. Followed by everyone else a whole minute later. All Might was the most surprised, like, how did he even find me? I didn't even give off the signal. And then his opponents came up to him, and Sero, being an upbeat guy, says, "Whoa, dude, you're really fast. Maybe you could teach me a thing or two." Izuku was a bit surprised because no one ever really talked to him before, so he said, oh yeah, maybe. And Mina then jumps in, "Yeah, me too." Izuku just scratched the back of his head, yeah, sure. Then he looks at Ida and Ojiro, "You guys too?" They said, "Yeah, man." Wait, no, Ida wouldn't say that. He says, "Yes, of course." So that happens, and so after the race, they had to head back to class, and Aizawa was telling them about the finals. And after he gave his speech about what they're gonna be doing for their final exams, everyone, well, they wouldn't tell them because, yeah. So after that, everyone in the class, well, not everyone, but people like Kirishima, Denki, and Mina were all stressed out. They were dragging their hair. They're like, "I'm so bad at exams. I'm like the bottom of the class." And Aizawa, before he leaves, says, "Well, ask some of the top students, like Stark or Yaoyoro's or Tenya." And then he walks out of the class, and Kirishima sprints over to Izuku. "Please, man, I'm gonna fail. Can you tutor me?" And Izuku's like, "Well, I don't see the problem, but what subject?" He says, "Well, everything." Then you hear Bakugo in the lab bust out, and then you hear Bakugo bust out laughing, "You dumbass!" And then Kirishima says, "Shut up, Bakugo. Shut up, Baku, bro. Not everyone can be smart." Then Izuku cuts in, "Well, if anyone else needs help, just meet me at Dagobah Beach tomorrow." He says this only expecting like 3 people at most to show up. So he leaves class heading towards the support course to get Mei, and they can head home. He goes to open the door, but similar to Canon, the door explodes and Izuku gets knocked back. And Mei lands on his chest and says, "Oh, Izuku, you're here to carry me home?" He's like, "Yeah, and I'm guessing another broken machine." Then she just gets mad. He's like, "Hey, not everyone can be as good as you." Izuku begins laughing and kisses her on the forehead and says, "That's what I like about you." Well, the limo is ready. So they got up, and after apologizing to Power Loader, they head to Izuku's house. And luckily Inko wasn't home this time because she wasn't the biggest fan of Mei because, she always snuck into her house. So the next day, Izuku goes to the beach to meet Kirishima and probably Mina as well. And he goes and sees literally everyone in Class 1A there except for like Sato, Kota, Minato, and Bakugo. Izuku looks at Momo and says, "Oh, why are you here? You're the top of the class." She folds her arms and says, "Well, I just wanted to see what makes you above me." And Izuku sighs and calls for another car because they won't all fit in the one limo. So after everyone gets in, they get on their way to his house, and the limo automatically blacks out the window so they don't know the direction of his house. Because it's still like a secret, like no one knows where the Stark family lives. So as they arrive, the windows go back to being see-through and they look out and their jaws drop. They see they see this western style mansion with a huge driveway and 5 other cars ranging from like sports cars to SUVs. And after their initial awe, Izuku's maid come out, and one per person, they take them to the backyard, taking off their jackets or whatever. So the backyard was like a training field. It had tracks and different obstacles, and Izuku then called for everyone's attention. Well guys, your training starts now. And he turns into his suit. Mei flies down in her suit and 2 other autonomous suits fly down. They begin rushing at the students, attacking them from above, doing hand-to-hand combat, testing their agility, stamina, and strength. And this goes on for the entire day, and by the end of their training, everyone just was on the ground, completely exhausted. They didn't even have enough... And when they finally had enough strength to stand, he showed them to their rooms. It was like a small house next to his mansion where they had, sleeping areas, a kitchen, just basic stuff like that. So after resting for a bit and washing off, they had some food, which Izuku had his chef specially make for his type of training. And everyone sees the food and their mouths begin watering, So they completely devour it, and this process of exhausting training goes on for an entire week. And the last 2 days he uses to cram information into their brains so they don't fail the written part of the exams. So time goes by and some time goes by and they're back in school in time for the finals. So the written exams go by and no one fails, and surprisingly the lowest grade was 92%. And this amazed some of the teachers who were marking, and especially Nezu when he got the papers. So to the physical exams, the first matchups, they tell them that they'll be facing the teachers and they put them in pairs. So first is Sato and Kirishima versus Cementos. Both their quirks wear off quickly, so they're not really that good in drawn out fights. But this is one of the things Kirishima worked on with Izuku. His endurance and pushing his hardness to the point where he reaches his unbreakable form, making any of Cemento's attack just break on impact with his skin. So he keeps this up for long enough to run out of the exit, winning it for his team. And the teachers as well as students, the students who didn't go to Izuku's training, were all amazed at Kirishima at how his quirk grew in such little time. And up next was Asui and Tokoyami versus Ectoplasm. So the match starts and Ectoplasm tries using his clones to take down the students, but with Tokoyami using Dark Shadow to cover his body, increasing his physical attributes, he went from clone to clone, destroying them. But this was all a distraction and Asui, who basically gained all the abilities of a frog, camouflaged into the wall, making her almost invisible. But when you look directly at her, you would notice. But with the distraction, she was completely invisible to Ectoplasm. So she manages to sneak up behind him and put cuffs on him, winning the match for her team. So, okay, these fights are... Okay, so there are like 10 fights, so I'm not going to go over all of them. So most of them go to canon, but the students do display all that they've learned from Izuku's training. So to Bakugo and Izuku versus All Might. This goes the same, where Bakugo tries fighting All Might solo, but because he feels threatened by Izuku, he feels he has to prove something. So he rushes in as soon as the match starts and heads towards All Might. Within a minute of reaching him, Bakugo gets completely bodied, All Might knowing to break his gauntlets and just pounding Bakugo into the ground. No homo. So while this is happening, Izuku is assembling his Hulkbuster suit because the parts have to appear, and because it's a large suit, it takes a while. So after beating Bakugo to making him unconscious, All Might goes looking for young Stark. He looks down one of the alleyways and sees 3 blue glows, and out of the glow a beam shoots at him, but luckily it only grazed him, but it did some serious damage. So Izuku jumps out fully armed in his Hulkbuster suit and punches All Might, but his punch is met with another, cancelling both of them out. But something All Might didn't plan for was some rockets shot out of Izuku's gauntlets, thrusting his fist forward, breaking All Might's hand. He winced in pain, and as he refocused on Izuku, he dropped a flash bomb, blinding All Might, and when he finally regained his vision, Izuku was gone, and so was the body of Bakugo. Then Present Mike announced, "Team Stark wins." Izuku had grabbed Bakugo. So while All Might was blind, Izuku had actually grabbed Bakugo and turned into a lighter suit and flew towards the exit as fast as possible. So with almost everyone passing that underwent Izuku's training, they got praise from teachers and for their immense improvements. So with the final exams out of the way, next is the forest training, and they get a break to get their stuff together, like I would say a weekend. So we catch up with Izuku a day before they're supposed to go to the forest training camp. Izuku is just chilling on the beach with Mei, dipping their toes into the water, when he sees a purple glow which catches his eyes. It's this shape of a stone and it washed up on the shore. He goes to pick it up, but as he does, a portal appears. A large purple hand grabbed his hand before he could touch the stone. Then another portal appears, another hand grabbing the stone he was about to pick up. No, the 2 portals merge and become even bigger, large enough for a man to step out. A man clad in gold armor and purple skin walks out. He looks at Izuku, who was already in one of his suits. Then this man, who we know as Thanos, begins to talk.
"Oh, Tony, this is where you ran off to. Don't worry, I took care of that girl. What's her name again? Oh yes, Pepper Potts. And that daughter of hers, Morgan Stark. Don't worry, you're next."
And that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. Thank you guys for sticking to the end of the What If. If you enjoyed, like my content in general, you can subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next What If.